Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a really close look, at the Icelandic Police Force, the Ríkisfólkið.
That's right.
We know you want to get up to speed quickly and thoroughly on topics like this.
Yeah.
So consider this your fast track to understanding Icelandic law enforcement.
Yeah, we'll try and hit the main points.
Our mission is pretty straightforward. Pull out the most important, the most interesting bits about the Icelandic police from what we've gathered.
And there are some surprising things in there, definitely.
Absolutely. Expect some, well, unexpected insights into how policing evolved in Iceland, a place most people think of as just incredibly peaceful.
It is, generally. But that reputation for safety doesn't mean there isn't a complex story behind its police force. It's quite an evolution, really, from, informal community stuff to a modern agency.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Origins. Our sources say a formal police presence was, well, pretty late coming to Iceland, around 1778. What was happening before that?
Yeah, before 1778, you wouldn't find a police force like we think of one today. Not really. Keeping order was more down to individuals who were authorized by the Althing in the parliament.
Right.
And later by these figures called sysselmenn. You could maybe think of them as local sheriffs or administrators appointed by the Danish crown back then. It was very localized.
Less professionalized, maybe.
Definitely less professionalized, yeah. More ad hoc.
And then the first hint of something like a police force pops up in Reykjavik.
Yeah.
Tied to early industry.
Yeah.
Tell us about these night watchmen. The weapons sound interesting.
They really do. Yeah, these Thirst Night Watchmen in Reykjavik, they carried morning stars, the spiked mace things.
Wow.
And their job wasn't even general crime fighting. It was super specific. Stop inmates from the Reykjavik prison breaking into the Innredengarner.
Which were?
Early industrial workshops. Really important for the town's economy back then. So it was basically a focused security detail for those workshops.
That's fascinating. A very specific task. And a far cry from modern policing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so fast forward slightly to 1803, we get the first proper policemen in Reykjavik. Who were they? Why were they hired?
Right. So Reykjavik becomes a free town, gets a bit more status, and the mayor, Rasmus Frydensberg, he hires two guys, former soldiers actually, Ole Bjorn and Wilhelm Nolte.
Okay.
These are considered the first official policemen in the capital, a definite step towards something more formal. But, and this is key, this was just Reykjavik.
Huh.
It took quite a while, really until after 1891, for most other parts of Iceland to start hiring their own police officers. It shows how slowly that national structure developed.
Moving into the 20th century then, there were some big changes. That 1933 Police Act sounds pretty significant. What was behind that?
Yeah, the 1933 Act, you have to see it in the context of the time. There were growing social tensions and specifically real fears about a potential communist revolution.
Really? In Iceland?
Yes. There was a pretty violent incident at the Reykjavik City Council meeting where apparently a big chunk of the small police force they had got injured.
Right.
So that really cranked up the anxiety. The act itself did two main things. First, it brought in state funding for police forces, sort of acknowledging it as a national issue, not just local.
Made sense.
And second, it gave the Minister of Justice and Ecclesiastical Affairs, interestingly, the power to call out reserves and emergencies, a move towards more central control when things got serious.
And that centralizing trend continued, didn't it?
Yeah.
The National Police formed in 1972.
Exactly. The 72 shift, creating the National Police, was all about making the system more cohesive, more efficient across the whole country, standardizing things.
Right.
And then, just a few years later, 1977, they established the State Criminal Investigation Police. You can think of them as a specialized unit.
For major crimes.
Precisely. Taking the big, serious criminal investigations away from the local police commissioners and the Reykjavik Criminal Court, concentrating that expertise.
So a dedicated National Investigation Unit. But that setup changed again, right? 1997, the National Commissioner of the Police comes in?
It did. The creation of the National Commissioner post in 97 also meant decommissioning that State Criminal Investigation Police unit we just talked about.
Why the change back, sort of?
Well, it wasn't really a step back, more like a refinement. The idea was to integrate those investigative capabilities more directly under the commissioner. It was about improving intelligence sharing, getting a better handle on new types of crime that maybe cross local boundaries, better strategic oversight, essentially.
Got it. And today, Iceland's police force is structured into 9 districts. How does that map out?
Yeah, 9 districts. And they mainly follow Iceland's regional divisions, the sort of geographic areas already established,
Okay.
with one interesting exception. Vestmannaeyjar, the Westman Islands off the south coast, they're their own separate district. This current structure, the 9 districts, was set by a regulation in 2014. Each district has its headquarters, which is both an admin center and the main police station.
Do you give an example?
Sure, like the Capital Region District covers Reykjavik, Kópavogur, Hafnarfjörður, the main urban area, whereas the Western Region District would cover places like Borgarnes and Akranes up the coast. It allows policing to be a bit more tailored locally.
Right. Now, Iceland has this incredible reputation for safety. Serious incidents with armed police must be extremely rare.
Extremely rare, yeah.
But our sources do highlight 2 major shooting incidents in recent times. Let's talk about the 2013 Arbor shooting first. That's described as the first and only fatal shooting involving armed police in Iceland.
That's correct. It was a truly tragic and unprecedented event. Happened in Reykjavik, December 2013. Police were called out because of reports of shotgun fire from an apartment.
Okay.
They tried to de-escalate. Tear gas was used, but it didn't work. The special police unit eventually went in. 2 officers were hit by shotgun glass. One, his ballistic shield took the hit. The other was hit in the helmet. Incredibly, the helmet saved him.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. After that, 2 officers returned fire, and the gunman, a 59-year-old man, was killed. The National Police Commissioner immediately apologized publicly, called it exceptional, grave. And yeah, it still stands as the only time someone has been killed in a police shooting in Iceland's entire history. It was a real shock to the system.
I can only imagine. And then more recently, 2021, the Ingólfsstaðir shooting. Not fatal, but significant for another reason.
Yes, the Ingólfsstaðir incident also involved a gunman, this time firing a shotgun and a handgun at a car and a house. Local police responded, armed with pistols.
And the significance.
This was the first time a regular police officer, not from the Special Vikingasveitin unit, actually fired their weapon while on duty. They spent about an hour trying to get the guy who was inside the house to surrender. He eventually came out and started shooting at the officers. One officer returned fire, hit the gunman, injured him.
Did he survive?
He did. He survived and later got an 8-year prison sentence. But yeah, it was a big deal because it showed even regular officers might face situations requiring lethal force, which just hadn't really happened before.
These incidents, however rare, definitely underline potential threats. And speaking of threats, there was also news about an alleged terrorist plot in September 2022, first of its kind.
That was another major development, yes. Very concerning. In September 2022, authorities arrested 4 people. They were suspected of planning attacks targeting various institutions and potentially citizens as well.
A terrorist plot in Iceland.
Yeah. The first time authorities have really dealt with something they've labeled like that. Details are still a bit limited, obviously, but the fact they made arrests shows they took the threat very seriously. Adds a whole new layer to security concerns there.
Let's shift gears a bit. Training. How do Icelandic police officers get trained? There was some controversy around the police academy closing in 2016.
There was, yeah. The Independent Police Academy was shut down in 2016. And it was controversial because a committee had actually recommended that the University of Iceland in Reykjavik take over the training.
But that didn't happen.
No. Instead, the responsibility went north to the University of Akureyri.
Interesting choice.
It was. So now, aspiring officers do a 2-year university diploma in police science at Akureyri. It's 120 ECTS credits, which is basically like 2 full years of university study in the European system.
So more academic now.
Definitely a more academic foundation.
Yeah.
And that's paired with practical training at a separate place, the Center for Police Training and Professional Development, which was set up in 2016 to handle the hands-on side after the old academy closed.
Okay. And what about the structure inside the force? Ranks, uniforms.
Yeah, there's a clear hierarchy. You've got ranks like National Police Commissioner right at the top, then police commissioners for the districts, chief superintendents, down to police constable, and even police cadets in training.
And the look. What do they wear?
The standard uniform is navy dark. Pretty classic. It's got those black and white checked markings you see on police uniforms in quite a few places, plus the Icelandic police star emblem. They have both the traditional service uniforms, which are now used more like dress uniforms, and also more practical, tactical overalls for daily duties. And an interesting detail, patrol officers' trousers are fire resistant.
For safety, obviously.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Exactly.
Have the police cars changed recently, too? I feel like I've seen a different look.
You probably have. Starting in spring 2018, they rolled out a new livery, a new design for the vehicles.
Why that change?
Mainly for better visibility. It's based on some European models. It replaced the older design, which was blue and red stripes with the police star, used since about 2002.
So what do they look like now?
They're mostly white now, with Lögreglan, that's police in Icelandic, written in blue letters. Pretty clean look.
And what kind of cars are they driving?
You'll see quite a few Volvo V90 cross-country models, Akoda Octavias and Superbs are common too, and some Land Rover Discoveries, especially maybe outside the capital. And nowadays, the regional districts mostly own their own vehicles. The special unit, the Kingasveitin, they tend to use unmarked vehicles. Things like Ford Police Interceptor utilities, Chevrolet Suburbans, GMC Yukons, more heavy-duty stuff.
Makes sense for them. Okay, let's talk equipment, weaponry. What does a regular patrol officer carry day to day?
Standard issue for patrol is usually an extendable baton and pepper spray. That's the norm.
And firearms, tasers.
Tasers are becoming more common. Some officers carry them now. Firearms are...
Well, it's not like the U.S. where officers are always
Right.
armed.
Right.
All officers are trained to use firearms, though. And they're issued them, but only in specific situations deemed high risk.
Okay.
But to cut down response times, if something does kick off, most patrol cars actually have firearms secured in locked compartments inside the vehicle.
Ah, so they're accessible quickly if needed.
Exactly. And of course, the Special Operations Team, Vikingasveitin, they are always armed when they're on duty.
What kind of weapons do they have access to, both regular and special units? It's quite a range, actually. They use the Taser 10. Pistols include the Glock 17, pretty standard worldwide, and also the Brugger and Tomet LL06, which is often used for less lethal rounds. Then you've got submachine guns like the Heckler & Koch MP5, another classic.
Right.
Shotguns like the Mossberg 500. And for more serious firepower, things like the Heckler & Koch G36 and SIG MCX assault rifles, plus sniper rifles like the Blazer R93 and the older Steer SSG 69 for specialized roles. A mix of European and American gear.
Quite the arsenal, even if rarely used. Finally, let's touch on intelligence services. Iceland might seem small for that, but there's a history there.
Oh yes, definitely. There was a historical security department, the Eftirgrenslanidild. It was set up back in 1939.
What for?
It was actually founded pretty quietly by the prime minister at the time, mainly to keep an eye on potential internal threats, specifically Nazis and communists active in Iceland then.
So internal surveillance.
Yes. And after World War II, its focus shifted. It started monitoring communist embassies, keeping lists of suspected sympathizers, that sort of thing. It was all kept very under wraps, really wasn't publicly known until around 2006.
Wow, quite secretive. And now?
Now there's the National Commissioner's National Security Unit. It was set up in 2007. Its job is internal intelligence, looking at threats to the Constitution, terrorism, serious organized crime.
And they work with other agencies.
They do. They coordinate with the Defense of Iceland Agency, the Directorate of Customs, and the Prison Service as well to build that national security picture.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've covered quite a bit in this deep dive. We've seen the Icelandic Police Force evolve from, well, almost nothing formal through various stages to the modern setup we see today.
Yeah, from night watchmen with morning stars to university-trained officers with sophisticated equipment.
We looked at those really significant, though thankfully rare, armed incidents.
Yeah, the 2013 and 2021 shootings, key moments.
Plus the changes in training, uniforms, vehicles, equipment, and even that fascinating history of Icelandic intelligence gathering.
And it's always worth remembering that unique context, like you said earlier, a country known for peace, low crime. It makes the story of its police force particularly interesting, especially that historically very low rate of armed conflict.
Absolutely. This overview paints a really full picture, I think, and it leaves us and you listening with maybe a final thought to chew on. Given Iceland's reputation for safety, but also these modern challenges like the terror plot concern, the shootings, how does a society like that balance maintaining its peaceful character with the need for, increasingly advanced policing tools and training?
That's a really good question. A tough balancing act.
And maybe also, how might that shift to university-based education for officers change the way policing is done in Iceland in the future? Definitely something to think about.
Indeed.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Ríkislögreglan.